Alrighty everyone, let's get started. Hi and welcome back to English with Yubin, and for today's video I have prepared some useful phrases that you can use when you're on holiday and when you go traveling, and the topics that we will be covering today are when you arrive at the airport or at the hotel, going shopping and eating out, and also asking for directions, because I think we've all been there when we're on holiday and it's inevitable that you have to ask for a little bit of help, no matter how well you have planned. So I just thought that these would be helpful, so that's why we're covering them today. So, without further ado, shall we get started? So this first section is going to be covering phrases that you can use when you're at the airport and also getting on a plane. So yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so you know when you check in online and you're not happy with the seat that you've been assigned, you can always change or ask to change your seat when you arrive at the check-in desk at the airport. So the first phrase that we have is, do you happen to have any other seats? I'll repeat it twice slowly. Do you happen to have any other seats? Do you happen to have any other seats? And brought up to real time, do you happen to have any other seats? And obviously you can ask for an aisle seat or a window seat. An aisle seat or a window seat. Because as we all know, no one really wants to sit in the middle seat, so I'm assuming that when you ask to change your seat, it's mostly an aisle seat or a window seat. The next phrase describes a situation that I'm sure we've all been in, where our flight has been delayed, but we have a connecting flight to a different country that we can't be late for. So when you arrive at the next airport, you can say, I have a connecting flight to whatever country you're going to. Could you please tell me where I need to go? 2 more times. I have a connecting flight to da da da. Could you please tell me where I need to go? I have a connecting flight to da da da. Could you please tell me where I need to go? I have a connecting flight to da da da. Could you please tell me where I need to go? Because we're in a bit of a rush to get to our next gate as quickly and as efficiently as possible, because otherwise we're gonna miss our flight and we're not gonna make it to our final destination. And another useful tip, if you think you're going to miss your next flight, you can always tell the cabin crew that you have a connecting flight, and most of the time they'll let you leave the plane first before anyone else so that you don't miss your plane. For the next phrase, you know those situations where you have trouble putting your luggage in the overhead cabins? You can always ask for help. You can say, excuse me, could you please help me put away my luggage? 2 more times. Excuse me, could you please help me put away my luggage? Excuse me, could you please help me put away my luggage? So in real time, excuse me, could you please help me put away my luggage? And now moving on to customs. This is pretty much unavoidable when you go traveling. So I am going to give you 3 common customs questions, and I want you to pause the video and answer how you would normally answer, and then I will give my answer to these questions. So, customs question number 1. What is the purpose of your trip? What is the purpose of your trip? What is the purpose of your trip? Pause the video here, answer back. And for this question, I would normally answer, I'm traveling for work or leisure or to visit my family and friends. One more time. I'm traveling for work, leisure, or to visit my family and friends. I'm traveling for work, leisure, or to visit my friends and family. Second customs question, how long do you intend to stay? How long do you intend to stay? How long do you intend to stay? Pause the video. And normally I would answer, I'll be staying for days. I'll be staying for a number days. I will be staying for however many days. I'll be staying for the days. Or an alternative answer that you could give is you could just say, I'm staying until, and then the date that you're leaving. So I'm staying until the date. For customs question number 3, where will you be staying? Where will you be staying? Where will you be staying? Pause the video. So with this particular question, if you just say that you're staying at a hotel or an Airbnb or even a family or friend's house, most of the time it brings up further questions. So to avoid that, I normally give the name of the hotel or even the address that I'm staying at. So if I were to answer this question, I would say I'm staying at, and then give the name of the hotel or even the address. So I'm staying at, name of hotel or address. I'm staying at, name of hotel and the address. Well, congratulations, you have now reached your hotel, and the first thing you probably want to say when you reach the information desk is that you have hopefully made a reservation. So when you arrive, you can say, hello, I have a reservation under my name. So I would say Yubin. 2 more times. Hello or hiya. I have a reservation under name. Hiya. I have a reservation under your name. So I would say, hiya, I have a reservation under Yubin. Okay, well, the sun has finally decided to show itself, but all the rest of the phrases in this hotel section of the video are going to be rapid fire, so I'll say them 2 times slowly and then 1 time normal speed, and you guys can practice along with me. What floor am I on? What floor am I on? What floor am I on? Could you tell me where the lift is? Could you tell me where the lift is? Could you tell me where the lift is? What's the Wi-Fi password? What's the Wi-Fi password? And what's the Wi-Fi password? Is breakfast included? Is breakfast included? Is breakfast included? What time is check-in or check-out? What time is check-in or check-out? What time is check-in and check-out? And let's say, for example, you have a later flight in the evening and so you would like a later checkout, then you can go to reception and ask, is it possible to have a late checkout? Is it possible to have a late checkout? Is it possible to have a late checkout? But let's say for whatever reason, the receptionist says, actually, it's not possible to have a late checkout. Then you could ask, in that case, is it possible to leave our luggage here and collect them later? in that case, is it possible to leave our luggage here and collect them later? In that case, is it possible to leave our luggage here and collect them later? And for the last two phrases in this hotel section, we have, firstly, is there a grocery store or a bank nearby? Is there a grocery store or a bank nearby? Is there a grocery store or a bank nearby? And the very last one is, are there any good restaurants in the area or nearby? Are there any good restaurants in the area or nearby? Are there any good restaurants in the area or nearby? Great! Now moving on to directions, I actually only included a few phrases in this section because I'm assuming a lot of you are using something like Google Maps to get around whilst you're traveling. So you probably don't need too much help, but let's get to it. Firstly, we have, excuse me, could you tell me where the place name is? Again, excuse me, could you tell me where this place is? Excuse me, could you tell me where this place is? Alternatively, you could say, excuse me, do you know where this place is? Excuse me, do you know where this place is? Excuse me, do you know where this place is? Next, we have, excuse me, how do I get to this place? Excuse me, how do I get to this place? Excuse me, how do I get to this place? And obviously, when you ask this question, always be prepared for directions to come back to you, so keep your ears opened. Next, let's say you just got on a bus or a train, but you're not quite sure whether it goes to the place that you're hoping to go to. Then you can ask someone, sorry, excuse me, does this bus or train go to so-and-so? Sorry, excuse me, does this bus or train go to the place name? Sorry, excuse me, does this bus or train go to the name? How long does it take to get to da-da-da? How long does it take to get to da-da-da? How long does it take to get to the place name? How much is a ticket or a fare? How much is a ticket or a fare? How much is a ticket or a fare? Okay, on to the second to last section of this video, eating out. Arguably the most important part of going on holiday, at least in my opinion, because I am a massive foodie. So when you first enter a restaurant, obviously you need a table. So you can say, hiya, do you have a table for however many people are in your group? Hiya, do you have a table for 5 people? Hiya, do you have a table for 5 people? Or alternatively, when you first walk into the restaurant, the waiter might ask you, how many people? How many people? How many people? And to that, you would respond, table for group number, please. Table for da-da-da, please. So for example, I would say, table for 5, please. Now let's say you've just sat down at your table, but there aren't enough chairs. So you could ask the table next to you if you could just grab the spare chair, and you can ask, excuse me, is this seat taken? Excuse me, is this seat taken? excuse me, is the seat taken? Or you could say, excuse me, do you mind if I take this chair? Excuse me, do you mind if I take this chair? Excuse me, do you mind if I take this chair? Okay, now let's say you're ready to order. You make eye contact with the waiter and you ask, could we order, please? Could we order, please? Could we order, please? Could I get, insert the dish name. Could I get, da-da-da. So for example, could I get the burger? Or let's say you have absolutely no idea what you want, or you want to try local foods. Then you could ask the waiter, do you have any recommendations? Do you have any recommendations? Do you have any recommendations? And if you're vegetarian or vegan, you could ask, what dishes are vegetarian or vegan? What dishes are vegetarian or vegan? And what dishes are vegetarian or vegan? Okay, now let's say you've just finished ordering for everybody on the table, but you're still not quite sure whether it's enough food for everyone. Then you could ask the waiter, do you reckon that's enough? Do you reckon that's enough? And do you reckon that's enough? And obviously at a restaurant, the waiter will always ask, anything to drink? Anything to drink? And anything to drink? To which you could answer, could we get water for the table? Could we get water for the table? Could we get water for the table? Or if you're like my family who knows literally absolutely nothing about wine, then you could always ask for recommendations again. You could say, do you have any recommendations for wine? Do you have any recommendations for wine? Do you have any recommendations for wine? But let's say for whatever reason they accidentally give you the wrong order and you're not someone like me who will just eat the wrong order, then you could politely tell them, sorry, excuse me, this isn't what I ordered. Sorry, excuse me, this isn't what I ordered. Sorry, excuse me, this isn't what I ordered. And lastly, we have, could I get the bill, please? Could I get the bill, please? Could I get the bill, please? Alternatively, you can again make eye contact with the waiter because we are not going to be putting our hands up and waving in the air for the waiter's attention. And we're not going to be shouting, excuse me, across the restaurant. So again, wait until you make eye contact with the waiter and you can just do this in the air and they will bring you the bill. And of course, always remember to thank your waiter. It is honestly such a big pet peeve of mine if people don't say thank you, and please, especially to the waiter. So yeah, let's just have manners, okay? Okay, we have finally arrived at the last section of this video, which is shopping. And let's say you've just walked into a grocery store and you're not sure where to find this item. I don't know, let's say you're looking for bread. I don't know why I said bread. It was the first thing that came to mind. But anyway, let's say you are actually looking for bread. You could find someone who works there and ask, excuse me, do you have any bread? Excuse me, do you have any bread? Excuse me, do you have any bread? Alternatively, you could ask, excuse me, do you know where I could find bread? Excuse me, Do you know where I could find bread? Excuse me, do you know where I could find the bread? From here on, all these phrases can be used regardless of where you're shopping. It could be at a market, at a grocery store, or a clothing store, any place that you're shopping. So, a very basic one to begin with, we have, how much is it? How much is it? How much is it? Can I try this on? Can I try this on? Can I try this on? Do you have this in a bigger or smaller size? Do you have this in a bigger or smaller size? And do you have this in a bigger or a smaller size? So now you're done with all your shopping and you're paying at the till, but you want to ask about tax refunds. Then you could ask, do you do tax refunds? Do you do tax refunds? And do you do tax refunds? Also, very quick note if you're traveling to the UK, because I actually didn't know about this until my dad was leaving in August, but I'm sure you'll be very sad to hear that the UK actually scrapped the tax refund system in 2021, I think. So if you do your shopping here, you can't get tax refunds. So yeah, as disappointing as that may be, that is now how the system works here. So just keep that in mind when you're planning on traveling here and shopping here. But anyway, the next phrase we have is, do you do any discounts? Do you do any discounts? So for example, when I was still a student, I always asked, do you do any student discounts? And finally, do you take cash or card? Do you take cash or card? Do you take cash or card? Well, alrighty everyone, we have finally come to the end of this video, and those were all the phrases that I had prepared from my experience traveling and the phrases that I use most often. So yeah, I just thought that they would be helpful to learn and use when you're traveling and when you're on holiday, so you can practice them at home first and saying them out loud, and then when you're on holiday in a different country, you can practice them some more. But yeah, I mean, I hope it was somewhat entertaining and also useful to learn these phrases. But anyway, that is all the time we have for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching and listening, and I will hopefully see you guys all again very soon. Bye!